Hello, I'm Mike Loder, and today we're discussing how to have meaningful engagement with culturally and linguistically diverse audiences. I'm joined by Polaron's director and founder, Eva Hussain, as well as Hasara Liyanage and Christopher Di Pasquale. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
No worries, there we are. All right, Hasara, I'll start with you. How can organisations create socially impactful communications to engage with culturally and linguistically diverse communities?
There's a lot of different ways. I would say the one good thing to come out of COVID was the ability to connect online. And because of this, many nonprofits, community groups, cultural organizations, including ourselves here at Polaron, run really great workshops, events, and webinars weekly. And I think the best way to create socially impactful communication is to listen to the groups that have the best interests of the culturally and linguistically diverse communities. I think it's important to take all that information in and then sort of shape future communication strategies around that information.
Yeah, and keeping the content sort of generating is really important as well. Chris, what are the benefits that organisations could see around, and multicultural communities as well, I should say, when content is actually translated and translated well?
Yeah, look, obviously there's a mutual benefit on a really basic level, which is, content and messages get communicated to everyone. And so, it means that there's an equality there. People who aren't, don't have English as their first language are able to receive the same sorts of messages as everyone else. COVID is obviously, it's the thing that dominates our lives at the moment, and it's the thing that's really exposed the benefits when you get it right, but also the disadvantages, not just to that community, but to the community at large when those messages aren't being communicated into the language that people understand.
Yeah. Hasara, what services does Polaron provide to help support this? And what does community approved and co-design mean for those out there who aren't working directly with Polaron just yet?
Well, we offer a wide range of tailored services. Our community-approved translation is by far the best way to ensure your project resonates with your target audience. The translation process is quite heavy, but it involves 3 initial steps. It includes the translation of the resource by a NADI certified translator, a review of that translation by a second NADI certified translator, and then, of course, a final review by an ethno-specific community group or member. This way is the best way to ensure that your translation is checked for accuracy, cohesion, and it helps avoid any cultural insensitivities that may occur. In terms of our co-design process, it's quite similar. However, instead of a 3-step review process, we create the resource from scratch with all the stakeholders' input, meaning that the organization, Polaron, our translators, and community groups together tackle that one communication initiative. We provide the project management, community connections, and communication expertise to facilitate such a process so that a meaningful resource can be created from the very beginning.
It's a very well put. It's all sort of done for you, it sounds like, which is great. Chris?
Yeah, to a certain degree.
Oh, to a certain degree, yeah. You've got to bring a few things to the table. Chris, when and why should organisations go that extra step to use community-approved translations and translators?
Yeah, so, I'm a certified translator, and I think my translations are pretty good, but having that extra step means there are things that inevitably get missed in the translation process, and someone can pick that up. Going that extra step to get a community-approved translation means that you're not just looking for grammatical errors or errors of omission between your source file and your target text, but also things like cultural appropriateness, things like register, especially when you're dealing with communities. Kind of new and emerging languages in Australia, which is primarily, where you definitely want to target with a lot of communication. Just making sure that it's not just formally correct, but that the person who it's intended for can actually read it, understand it, and will receive it in the spirit that it's intended.
Yeah, so in the spirit of boosting engagement, I think that's really important as well. Well, thank you both for coming on this chat today and having a discussion with us about engagement.
Thanks, guys.
No worries, thanks.
All right, Eva, summarise a little bit for me just about what we touched on just there.
Well, Hasara and Chris have said it all, but really to get your communication right when you want to speak to multicultural audiences, you do need to engage them. However that engagement looks to you is up to you, but we do provide an end-to-end service from designing the resource to testing it with the community. what's really important is not to spend money on translations that people aren't going to be able to read or putting it on a website somewhere that people cannot access. I think it's really important that if we're going to spend money and time on developing resources for the community, that they actually are accurate, that they resonate. But also, I always think of myself as the 18-year-old that came to Australia with not a word of English, like that is the person that we do translation for. It is your grandmother, it is your younger sister who immigrated here 2 years ago, whoever that might be. When we translate, we think of those people at the end of the very long journey that a translation is.
Yeah, it's not just a box to tick for organisations. These are people's lives. These are people's engagement as well. So yeah,
that's right. And we've certainly seen it through the pandemic, where we don't think of basic things like people might not have a computer at home. They might not have internet. They might not have a phone. So it's also really important to look at communication with multicultural audiences in a diverse way. So you can't just develop a brochure, print it off and hope that somebody's going to come and pick it up. It's about working out who the people you're talking to are and what is the best way for you to communicate with them. And that's where we come in and assist.
Robust communication. I love it. Now, guys, if you have any questions about engaging with your multicultural audiences through interpreting, Polaron's contact details are on the screen, and their amazing team will be more than happy to answer any questions you have. They help out with all sorts of things in this area, so look them up. I'm Mike Loder. Thanks again for your time.